I remember the day I met Sarah like it was yesterday. It was a sunny afternoon, and we were both at a mutual friend's barbecue. She wore a sundress that danced around her knees, her laughter ringing out like a melody in the warm breeze. We talked for hours, sharing stories, dreams, and aspirations under the shade of a sprawling oak tree. From that day forward, we were inseparable. I thought we were perfect for each other, a couple who balanced each other out in the most delightful way. In the early years of our marriage, we built a life filled with adventures and laughter. We traveled to quaint little towns, explored art galleries, and even took salsa dancing lessons, which was a riot considering my two left feet. I cherished those moments, and I thought the foundation of our love was unshakable. But as time passed, I noticed subtle changes. Sarah began spending more time on her phone, her laughter less frequent, and she often had excuses to go out with friends. I brushed those concerns aside, convincing myself that she was simply busy with work or needed a break from our routine. But deep down, I felt a gnawing sense of unease. I wanted to believe my wife loved me as much as I loved her, but the signs were like shadows lurking at the edges of my mind, whispering doubts. I should have paid more attention. I should have trusted my instincts. But life has a way of keeping you blind to the truth until it slaps you in the face. The day I discovered the affair was a day like any other, or so I thought. I was at home, scrolling through social media, when I stumbled upon a post that made my heart drop. It was a picture of Sarah, arms wrapped around a man dressed as a clown, his oversized shoes and bright red nose contrasting sharply with her radiant smile. The caption read, "Best day ever at the park. Thanks for the laughs, bozo." At first I laughed out loud thinking it was a harmless photo, a silly moment captured in time. But then the laughter turned to confusion. Bozo? Who was this clown? My heart raced as I clicked on the profile of the performer. I scrolled through his pictures, each one more jovial than the last. I could feel my stomach twist as I realized that this wasn't just a passing encounter. Sarah was spending time with him, and I could feel the betrayal seep into my bones. I remember the exact moment the truth hit me. I sat on the couch, the world around me fading, and my mind spiraled into a whirlwind of emotions. She wouldn't do this to me, I thought, clenching my fists. This can't be real. But deep down, I knew. The signs had been there, and I had ignored them like a fool. My thoughts raced through a storm of disbelief, anger, and heartache. How could she do this? Was I not enough? I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air as betrayal wrapped its icy fingers around my throat. The laughter we shared, the moments we built together, they all felt tainted now, like a cruel joke played by fate. I stood up, packing the room, trying to make sense of it all. The more I thought, the more I felt the rage boil inside me. I could confront her, but what would I say? I needed proof, something solid that would shatter her facade. And so I began my quest for the truth. I started watching her, tracking her movements, piecing together the puzzle of her betrayal. Each outing, each late-night phone call became a thread in the tapestry of our unraveling relationship. I felt like a detective, but instead of uncovering a crime, I was uncovering the destruction of my heart. I had to confront her, but I needed to do it in a way that would leave no room for denial. As I gathered my evidence, I realized I needed to do something more than just confront her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the depth of her betrayal. That's when the idea struck me, a plan so absurd that it almost made me laugh through the tears. I wanted to expose her affair in the most humiliating way possible, and the clown performer would be the perfect metaphor for the joke my life had become. The days passed, and with each one, my resolve hardened. I knew I had to confront Sarah, but I wanted to do it on my terms, making sure she felt the sting of betrayal like I did. I began to devise a plan that was equal parts revenge and dark humor. After all, if she could laugh and flirt with a clown, then why not turn the tables and make her the punchline of this tragicomedy? I started by gathering more evidence of her affair. I followed her one evening when she said she was going out for drinks with friends. Instead, I found her at the theme park, her laughter echoing in the air as she embraced that clown. I watched from a distance, my heart pounding in my chest as she playfully engaged with him, her eyes sparkling with joy. It was like a knife twisting deeper into my soul. I could feel the heat of anger rising within me, and I had to remind myself to stay calm. This was all part of the plan. I returned home that night, my mind racing with thoughts. I could picture the confrontation in my head, her shocked face when I revealed what I knew, the denial that would surely follow, and then the moment of truth when I would make her feel the weight of her choices. But I needed to execute this with precision. I wanted it to be theatrical, something that would leave a lasting impression. The theme park was a perfect backdrop for my plan. It was a place filled with laughter, joy, and a sense of whimsy, everything Sarah had seemed to find in her affair. I imagined the scene vividly. Sarah, surrounded by friends and family, witnessing her own betrayal play out in front of her like a twisted carnival show. I began to make arrangements. I reached out to the theme park, pretending to be a concerned husband wanting to surprise my wife with a special performance. I explained that I wanted to incorporate a surprise element into the clown's act, something that would highlight the absurdity of infidelity. The park staff, eager to please and unaware of my true intentions, were more than happy to accommodate my request. As the day of the execution approached, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. I had no idea how Sarah would react, but I was ready to face whatever came next. I imagined her face turning pale as the clown began his act, turning the spotlight on her, unveiling her secrets for everyone to see. It was a bittersweet anticipation, a blend of satisfaction and chaos. On the day of the performance, I arrived at the park early, my heart pounding with adrenaline. I watched as families filled the spaces around me, laughter and joy bubbling in the air. Children ran past me, their faces painted with smiles, while parents snapped photos of their little ones. It was a scene of innocence, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to unfold. When Sarah arrived, I was positioned discreetly in the crowd. She was with a group of friends, all of them laughing and chatting, blissfully unaware of my presence. My heart raced as I anticipated the moment when the clown would take the stage. I could see Sarah's face light up when she spotted the performer, her laughter ringing out like a siren's call, pulling me deeper into my resolve. As the clown began his act, I felt a surge of power. He juggled brightly colored balls and performed silly tricks, drawing the audience's attention. And then, just as I had arranged, he turned the spotlight on Sarah. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced with a booming voice, "I have a special guest today. Let's give a big round of applause to our lovely lady in the audience." Laughter erupted around me, and I felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. I could see Sarah's expression shift from joy to confusion, her smile faltering as she realized she was the center of attention. The clown continued, "But wait, it seems our lovely lady has a secret. Can anyone guess what it is?" I watched as the crowd leaned in, anticipation building. I could see Sarah's eyes darting around, her cheeks flushing red. The clown, with his oversized shoes and painted grin, began to weave a tale about a woman who had fallen for a performer, his exaggerated gestures and playful tone only adding to the absurdity of the moment. I could feel the tension in the air as I watched her struggle to maintain her composure. My heart raced. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for was unfolding before me. I was both a participant and an observer in this darkly comedic play, and I was filled with a sense of satisfaction knowing that she was finally facing the consequences of her actions. As the clown continued to poke fun at her, I realized that while I wanted to expose her, a part of me was still wrestling with the remnants of love I had for her. But the betrayal was too deep, and the laughter around me drowned out any lingering feelings of affection. It was her turn to feel the weight of her choices, and I was determined to make her understand the gravity of what she had done. The scene was surreal, a twisted carnival of emotions unfolding before my eyes. The clown, with his exaggerated antics, had transformed into an unwitting executioner of my wife's secrets. I watched as he continued to spin his tale, weaving in details that were both humorous and biting, his words punctuated by laughter from the audience. The crowd was eating it up, completely unaware of the underlying tragedy. "Now our lovely lady here," the clown exclaimed, pointing directly at Sarah, "has been sneaking off to the park to see a certain someone. But who could it be? A knight in shining armor, a dashing prince, or perhaps, he paused dramatically, letting the anticipation build. A clown. The audience erupted in laughter, and I could see Sarah's face turn a deeper shade of crimson. I felt a mix of satisfaction and dread as I watched her. Squirm. She glanced around, her eyes searching for me, but I remained hidden among the crowd, a silent witness to her humiliation. I could see the realization dawning on her, the understanding that this was no mere coincidence. The clown was not just performing, he was revealing her infidelity to everyone she held dear. Friends, family, and strangers alike were now part of this grotesque spectacle. "Ladies and gentlemen," the clown continued, "let's give a cheer for our star of the show. But beware, for she's been caught in a web of lies. Who knew that our sweet Sarah had a penchant for mischief?" The laughter intensified, and I could see Sarah's composure cracking as she tried to maintain a smile, the facade slipping away. The irony of it all was not lost on me. Here she was, the woman who had laughed at my trust, being turned into the punchline of a joke. I felt a surge of dark humor wash over me. It was as if the universe had conspired to serve her a plate of her own medicine. I had imagined this moment countless times, but seeing it unfold was a different experience altogether. Each laugh from the crowd felt like a dagger, and I couldn't help but revel in the chaos I had orchestrated. As the clown continued, he began to mimic a romantic scene, pretending to woo Sarah with exaggerated gestures. "Oh, my darling," he exclaimed, "how could you betray your loving husband for a mere jester?" The crowd roared with laughter, and I could see Sarah's eyes darting around, panic setting in. She was trapped in her own story, and I was the one holding the pen. Finally, the clown made his way to the climax of his act. But fear not, dear audience, for love can conquer all, even the heart of a cheating wife. He turned to Sarah and with a flourish presented her with a comically oversized bouquet of fake flowers, complete with a note that read, "I'm sorry I clowned around." The audience erupted into laughter once more, but I could see the tears welling in Sarah's eyes. It was a moment of catharsis for me. I had spent so long feeling like a fool, and now, as I watched the woman I loved being publicly humiliated, I felt a strange sense of power. I had taken control of the narrative, flipping the script on our relationship. But then a wave of guilt washed over me. Was this truly what I wanted? To see her hurt? To revel in her shame? I wrestled with my emotions as the clown continued his antics, but I couldn't deny the satisfaction that came with exposing her betrayal. She had made me feel like a fool for too long, and now the tables had turned. Yet as I watched her struggle to hold back her tears, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was crossing a line. Revenge was supposed to feel good, but this felt like a bitter victory. Finally, the performance came to an end, and the clown bowed dramatically, the audience erupting into applause. I could see Sarah standing there, frozen in place, her friends surrounding her, a mix of confusion and concern etched on their faces. It was time for me to confront her, to lay bare the truth behind my actions. As I stepped forward from my hiding spot, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The laughter faded, replaced by an uneasy silence as I approached her. Sarah's eyes widened, and I could see the realization hit her like a tidal wave. She knew this was the moment I had been waiting for. "Surprise, Sarah," I said, my voice steady but tinged with an underlying anger. "Looks like your little secret has been exposed. How does it feel to be the clown in this story?" Her face fell, shock and disbelief mingling in her expression. You planned this," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every bit of it," I replied, feeling a surge of adrenaline. "You thought you could betray me and get away with it. Well, now everyone knows the truth." I watched as the tears spilled down her cheeks, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of sympathy, but that quickly faded as I remembered the laughter, the betrayal, and the pain she had caused me. I had wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, and now she was standing before me, a broken woman. "Why?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why would you do this?" "Because you made me a fool in front of everyone," I replied, my heart hardening. "You wanted to play games, so I decided to turn the tables. It's time for you to understand what you've done." The crowd began to disperse, whispers filling the air as they processed what had just happened. I could see Sarah's friends looking at her with concern, their faces a mix of shock and pity. I had exposed her in the most humiliating way possible, and now the fallout was beginning. As the reality of the situation settled in, I realized that this was not just about revenge. It was about the end of a chapter, a painful conclusion to a story I had once thought would last forever. I had taken my stand, but at what cost? The aftermath of the clown performance felt like walking through a fog, the laughter of the crowd still echoing in my ears, but now it was accompanied by the heavy weight of reality. Sarah stood before me, her face streaked with tears, her friends surrounding her with worried expressions. The laughter had faded, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that hung in the air like a thick cloud. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a simple request, but I felt a surge of anger at the audacity of it. Talk, after everything. How could she still think we could talk our way out of this? Talk, I replied, my voice sharp. What's there to talk about, Sarah? You've already said everything you needed to say in your own way. You made your choice, and now everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Her friends exchanged glances, their concern palpable. I could see them trying to gauge the situation, unsure whether to intervene or let us hash it out. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. I wanted to scream, to let out the pain that had been festering inside me, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. "Please," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "Just give me a chance to explain." I couldn't help but scoff at her request. "Explain? What's there to explain? You were caught red-handed with a clown. What kind of explanation could possibly make this okay?" The bitterness in my voice was unmistakable, and I could see the hurt in her eyes. "Can we go somewhere private?" she asked, glancing at her friends who were now shifting uncomfortably. I could see the embarrassment creeping into her expression, and for a fleeting moment I felt a pang of sympathy. But it quickly evaporated, replaced by the overwhelming desire to make her feel the pain she had inflicted on me. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. "Let's go." I led her away from the crowd into a quieter area of the park, where the sounds of laughter were muffled by the distance. I needed to confront her, to make her feel the weight of her betrayal in a way that was raw and honest. Once we were away from prying eyes, I turned to her, my heart racing. "You think this is a joke, don't you? You think you can just laugh it off and everything will be okay?" I could hear the anger rising in my voice, each word laced with betrayal. "No, that's not it at all," she exclaimed, her hands trembling. "I never meant for it to go this far. It was just supposed to be fun, a distraction. I didn't think it would become this." She gestured back toward the park, as if the laughter and chaos could somehow justify her actions. "A distraction," I echoed, incredulous. "You think cheating on your husband is just a little fun? You think you can just wave it away like it doesn't mean anything?" Her expression shifted, a flicker of realization crossing her face. "I know it sounds terrible, but I was feeling lost, and I thought it would help me escape. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Escape?" I shot back, my heart pounding. "Think running off with a performer in a clown suit is the solution? What about us? What about the life we built together? You threw it all away for a cheap thrill." "I didn't throw it away," she protested, her voice rising. "I just what, Sarah?" I interrupted, my frustration boiling over. "Just wanted a little excitement. Is that all our marriage meant to you? A boring routine you wanted to escape from?" Tears streamed down her cheeks as she struggled to find the right words. "I was wrong. I see that now. I was foolish and selfish, and I'm so sorry, but I love you, I did. Mean for it to happen. Love." I spat, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "You think love is enough to justify this? You think saying sorry will fix the damage you've done? You've shattered my trust, Sarah. That's not something you can just glue back together with a few heartfelt words." I could see the pain in her eyes, the guilt weighing heavily on her. "I know I messed up, and I'll do anything to make it right. Please, just give me a chance to show you how much I care. I'll prove it to you." Her desperation tugged at something deep within me, but I quickly pushed it aside. "You think I can just forget this, that I can go back to the way things were?" I shook my head, feeling the anger well up inside me again. "You've made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences." "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But I want to fix this. I want us to work. I never meant to hurt you." For a moment I wavered. I could see the remorse in her eyes, the genuine regret that bubbled beneath the surface. but the anger still simmered, a flame that refused to be extinguished. You can't just expect me to forgive and forget. You've humiliated me, Sarah. You've made a fool of me in front of everyone. I know, she repeated, her voice filled with sorrow. And I'm so, so sorry. I promise I'll do everything I can to make it right. Just please don't give up on us. The weight of her words hung in the air, and I felt the tension between us shift. I was torn between the love I had once felt for her and the betrayal that now overshadowed everything. I wanted to believe her, to trust that she could change, but the scars of her actions were still fresh and raw. Maybe I need some time to think, I finally said, my voice quieter now. This is a lot to process. Sarah nodded, her eyes pleading. I understand. Just please don't walk away from me completely. I'll fight for us, I promise. As I turned to leave, I felt a pang of sadness mixed with resolve. I had exposed her, and in doing so, I had taken a step toward reclaiming my power. But the path ahead was uncertain, and I knew that the road to healing would be long and fraught with challenges. I walked away, my heart heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. The laughter of the park felt like a distant memory, replaced by the silence of my thoughts. I needed time to sort through the wreckage of our relationship and decide what I truly wanted. In the days that followed, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Each morning, I would wake up with the memory of Sarah's tear-streaked face fresh in my mind, a stark reminder of the betrayal that had shattered our lives. The laughter from the theme park still echoed in my ears, but now it felt like a haunting melody, a ghost of what once was. I had exposed her, but the satisfaction of revenge was fleeting, leaving behind a bitter taste in my mouth. I spent hours replaying the confrontation in my head, analyzing every word we exchanged. On one hand, I felt justified in my actions. She had deserved to face the consequences of her betrayal. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed a line. I had turned her pain into a spectacle, and while it felt good in the moment, I was left with an emptiness that gnawed at my conscience. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah reached out to me repeatedly. She texted, called, and even showed up at our home, desperate for a chance to talk. Each time, I felt the familiar pull of conflicting emotions. I wanted to hear her out, to understand her perspective, but I also wanted to protect myself from further hurt. I was still reeling from the betrayal, and the idea of reopening that wound felt unbearable. One evening, after a long day at work, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the wall. The silence was deafening, and my thoughts spiraled in circles. Just then, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Can we meet? I really want to talk, please. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the screen, torn between anger and the remnants of love that still lingered. Finally, I replied, fine, let's meet at the park. It felt fitting to return to the scene of the crime, a place that had become a battleground for our relationship. I needed to confront the reality of our situation once more and perhaps find some closure. When I arrived at the park, I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me. The sounds of laughter and joy filled the air, but this time, they felt like a cruel reminder of what I had lost. I spotted Sarah sitting on a bench, her posture tense, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. As I approached, I could see the vulnerability etched on her face. Thank you for coming, she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. I know things have been complicated, but I need you to hear me out. I nodded, crossing my arms defensively. Go ahead. I've spent the last few weeks reflecting on everything, she began, her eyes searching mine for understanding. I've realized how selfish I was. I was caught up in my own insecurities and forgot about the love we had. I never wanted to hurt you, I was just lost. I listened, my heart heavy as she spoke. I know I made a terrible mistake, and I'm so sorry, but I want to make it right. I want to work on our marriage, to rebuild what we had. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to fight for us. Fight for us, I echoed, incredulous. You think a few apologies and promises will fix everything. You broke my trust, Sarah. That's not something you can just repair with good intentions. I know, she said, her voice breaking. But I want to try. I want to show you that I can be better. I've started seeing a therapist to work on my issues, to understand why I made those choices. I want to be the partner you deserve. Her words resonated with me, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. But then the anger surged again, reminding me of the pain she had caused. "You should have thought about that before you ran off with a clown," I said, my voice laced with bitterness. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was for me? How it felt to see you laughing and having fun with someone else while I was left in the dark?" I "No," she replied, tears pooling in her eyes, "and I can't express how deeply sorry I am for that. I never wanted to hurt you, and I regret every moment I spent with him. It was a mistake, and I've learned from it. I promise I'll do better." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I was still grappling with my own emotions. "What if I can't forgive you?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "What if I can't forget what you did?" "Then we'll work through it together," she said, her gaze unwavering. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I love you and I don't want to lose you." I looked away, trying to process everything she had just said. Love, trust, betrayal. The words swirled in my mind like a tempest, and I felt overwhelmed. I had never imagined our relationship would come to this, a fragile thread hanging by a mere promise of change. "Maybe we should take a break," I suggested, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. "I need time to think about everything. I can't just jump back into things like nothing happened." Sarah's face fell, but I could see the understanding in her eyes. "I get it. I'll give you space. But please know that I'm here, ready to fight for us when you're ready." As we parted ways, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I was taking a step back, but it felt like I was also stepping away from the love we had built. The laughter of children echoed in the distance, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within me. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with my thoughts. I had exposed her, humiliated her, and yet here she was, asking for a chance to make things right. But could I trust her again? Could I forgive her for the pain she had caused? I knew the road ahead would be challenging and the scars of betrayal wouldn't heal overnight. But perhaps, just perhaps, there was a glimmer of hope for us. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of uncertainty settle over me. The days turned into weeks, and during that time my life felt like a balancing act. I was walking a tightrope between anger and forgiveness, love and betrayal. Sarah had given me the space I had requested, but her presence lingered in my mind like a bittersweet memory. The moments we had shared, the laughter that once filled our home, were now overshadowed by the betrayal that had shattered our trust. I spent my days trying to distract myself, working longer hours, engaging in hobbies, even reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in a while. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the reality of what had happened. My thoughts would inevitably drift back to Sarah, to the laughter I had heard at the theme park, and to the clown who had unwittingly played a role in our tragic story. One evening, as I sat on my couch staring blankly at the television, I received a text from Sarah. "Can we meet again? I think it's time we talk about us." My heart raced at the thought of seeing her again. I had been wrestling with my feelings, trying to determine whether I could truly forgive her, and now it felt like the moment of truth was upon me. I agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the distractions of the theme park or the weight of our home. As I walked in, I spotted her sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. She looked nervous, her eyes darting around the room as if she were bracing herself for a storm. "Hey," I said, taking a seat across from her. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "Hi," she replied, her voice soft. "Thank you for coming." "I've been thinking a lot about everything," I began, trying to find the right words. "About us, about what happened. It hasn't been easy." "I understand," she said, nodding. "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching too. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'm so sorry for that. I never wanted to be the person who betrayed your trust." I looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity. "You say that, but how can I be sure it won't happen again? How do I know you won't just fall back into old habits?" "I can't promise that. It will be easy," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I can promise that I'm committed to changing. I'm working on myself, on understanding why I made those choices. I've started therapy, and I want to be better for myself and for you." The vulnerability in her voice tugged at my heart. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to see the woman I had fallen in love with, not the one who had shattered my trust. "I appreciate that, but it's going to take time for me to process everything." I can't just forget what happened. I know, she replied, her eyes filled with understanding, and I'm willing to wait. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back, even if it takes a long time. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. I'm not sure where we go from here. I want to believe in us, but I also need to protect myself from being hurt again. Then let's take it slow, she suggested, her voice steady. We can start with small steps, rebuild our foundation. I don't want to rush anything. I just want the chance to show you that I can be the partner you deserve. As I listened to her, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could rebuild what we had lost, but it wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, takes time to mend. All right, I said, my voice firm yet hesitant. Let's take it slow, but know this, if you betray my trust again, I won't be able to forgive you. I understand, she said, relief washing over her face. Thank you for giving me another chance. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, sharing our thoughts and fears. It felt different this time, more honest, more raw. We both knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time since the affair, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. In the weeks that followed, we began to rebuild our relationship one small step at a time. We went on walks, shared meals, and even revisited some of our old haunts, slowly allowing laughter to replace the tension that had once filled the air between us. It was a delicate dance, filled with moments of doubt and reassurance, but we were both committed to the process. I still had my moments of insecurity, memories of her betrayal creeping into my mind when I least expected it. But Sarah was persistent in her efforts, proving through her actions that she was dedicated to making amends. She opened up about her struggles, her insecurities, and the reasons behind her choices. It wasn't easy, but slowly, the walls I had built around my heart began to crack. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching an old movie, I turned to her and said, "You know, I never thought we'd be here after everything that happened. It feels strange, but I think I'm starting to forgive you." Her eyes lit up and she reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. "Thank you. That means the world to me. I promise I won't take this chance for granted." As we sat together, I felt a warmth spreading through me, a sense of hope that had been absent for so long. The path to healing was still long, filled with uncertainty, but I realized that love could be resilient. It could bend and break, but it could also heal and grow. In that moment, I understood that life was a series of choices, and while Sarah had made a terrible one, she was willing to fight for redemption. And maybe, just maybe, I could learn to trust her again. As the credits rolled on the screen, I leaned over and kissed her, feeling the weight of the past begin to lift. We weren't out of the woods yet, but we were taking the first steps toward a new beginning, one that was filled with hope, laughter, and the possibility of a brighter future together. And as I held her close, I thought to myself, perhaps every story, no matter how painful, can lead to a new chapter. With that, I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next.